Hey guys, it's Ben the Coin Geek at Old Pueblo Coin, and today I have a video for you about silver, about constitutional silver, silver stacking. And this video is going to be a little different than a lot of the videos that I make. For those of you who are just watching this video because it's about buying silver in the silver market, welcome. Good to have you along. I mostly do coin videos, but I own a coin shop, and every day I talk to people about silver and about gold and about the economy and about the world around us. And I wanted to dispel one myth about silver. And I also am going to ask you to do something that I don't normally ask. I'm actually going to ask you to go ahead and watch the whole video. And that's because I think that the meta message, if you will, the message behind the message in this is important. And I'm not here to try to make some crazy claim that's going to blow your mind and make you, dispel owning silver. That's not what's going on here. It's actually something that's a deeper discussion that's maybe more philosophical than most of the discussions that you'll have around silver and around money. In most of the places that you watch people, they're predicting silver prices and all that. We're not doing that today. Today, the one thing that I'm going to dispel is that you're going to use silver in commerce. A lot of people tell you that, and that's like the main thing. You got to have silver because I need mercury dimes so I can buy a loaf of bread, kind of thing. I see no way at any point in time that you will actually use silver in commerce. In other words, you will never take silver to your local grocery store or gas station and use it to buy gasoline or a loaf of bread. You will turn it into whatever federal trade units electronically that you can. And the reason I want to have this discussion is because there's something that goes way beyond this. So if you're one of these guys that is all in on the creature from Jekyll Island, and the Federal Reserve is the devil, and if you're all in on the Great Reset and some of these other things that people come and talk to me about often, here's what I want to talk to you today about, and I want you just to think about this, and that is that the bigger scheme of things is, congratulations if you're right about all of this stuff, and you were right and everyone else is wrong, and you bought your metals, which I do think there's a reason for buying metals, and I've made videos about that. But what's beyond that? Okay, so the Great Reset happens, then what happens? Why is it that you are unable to communicate to your fellow man that, hey, the banks are controlling our lives, this, that, and the other? And so I've listened to a lot of this stuff over the years, and I think that one of the problems is that the messaging that is used to try to convince the average person into buying gold or silver isn't done correctly. But more importantly, I think that there's a bigger picture that's being missed. When the silver buyers blame big banks and big business for everything, you're missing part of the point. Now, one of the things is, with your neighbor around you, you're not going to convince them because he's got his car, his job, his house, his wife. He doesn't really care as much about these other things because he is in an economic place that is good. And that's true for a lot of Americans. I know that there's plenty of dismal news, but if you actually look at the national statistics, if you're making a minimum wage in America, you're in the top 1% of wage earners in the world, and you can actually live a decent life in a lot of places. I know if you're in a big city, this is different. I realize that if you're in San Francisco, it's hard to make it, or someplace else. But for a lot of people in America, you can make it just fine and be happy, and happiness is a serious problem. So making the banks your enemy is something that there's a message beyond that you're missing. Because what you're really worried about is trying to convince your fellow man something, right? You're trying to educate them. You want them to do what you're doing. And I know you guys have these conversations because you come in here and you say, I told my friends, I try to explain to my friends. And some of it is that you're going to lose arguments because there's one thing that the public education system does not teach, or teaches incorrectly, and that's history. And what I'm asking you to do today is to consider this. If you want to change the world around you, I'm not arguing that you shouldn't buy your silver. I'm not arguing that the Federal Reserve is your friend. But what I'm saying is you need to look at the school systems around you, and you need to consider what they are teaching. Everyone is teaching STEM, STEM this, STEM that, science, technology. Guess what? Everyone's been teaching STEM for 20 years. They just started calling it STEM so they could market to the parents that, oh gosh, we teach science. Your kids are going to be dumb without science. Your kids are going to be dumb without any understanding of first principles and of history. And they're going to be able to be controlled and manipulated by big business, by banks, by the Federal Reserve, because they don't have any history. They don't have any critical thinking skills. This is the fight that you should be fighting if you're someone with kids, if you got grandkids, if you're a single dude who's never been married. This matters. You're paying taxes. Your taxes are going to the school system. And those school systems, now just go and see what they're teaching and see what the kids around are learning. Because guess what? If you're 5 or 7, and you're being taught that your parents are bad people and that you have to trust the government, or your guidance counselor is more important than your parent is, that has an effect long-term on society. So one of the things that I talk about when it comes to silver is I use some historical points, the reasons I don't think it's going to be used in day-to-day commerce. Yes, you may be trading with somebody, but it's not going to be with a big commercial corporation, right? You may be bartering a little bit, right? So, but you're probably going to be trading that money into something else. But I always use the example of Germany. Germany went through hyperinflation in the 1920s, came out, became a world power 2 decades later. They went a little cray-cray, tried to conquer Europe and the world. I mean, do you remember that? Okay, so then after that, they got their butts kicked eventually. God bless the USA, right? USA, right? And I know a lot of you guys, you get into the economics of some of this, but look, after that, they went through inflation again. And guess what? Like 2 decades later, they were world power again. So what I'm talking about when I say the Great Reset and the Federal Reserve and what will really happen. So what will really happen? The average person will still probably really just have their job. They'll still just be going to work. They won't even notice. The Great Reset is happening right now around you, and it's social. It is not economic. Now, I understand it's a little bit of both, but hear what I'm saying. Hear the message behind the message, which is how are you going to be Germany? How are you going to live through hyperinflation and come back and be a successful player in the world stage if you don't have any work ethic, if your kids are being taught that is, oppressive to have work ethic? So the thing that Germany always had was work ethic, right? And when the government pays people to not work and everyone's just okay with that, those are the things that can really challenge your economy in the long run. When over half of Americans pay 0 federal taxes, these are the type of things. And so what I'm challenging you here is to work on a local level. So when I say the schools, so some of you have great school districts and have great teachers, and others of you not so much, right? And the reason I focus on schools is because it's local and you can actually have an effect, and a good long-term effect. You can volunteer time, make sure history is being taught properly, review what books they're learning. So instead of worrying about the Bilderbergers and the Rothschilds and who's president and who your senator is, and I know that the president, senate, and all this stuff has meaning in your life, in our lives, right? It means something. But it's not the same type of thing, because if you believe that all those guys are puppets and being controlled anyways, what good is it going to do to get the right guy in there? He's going to be manipulated by somebody else. But I'll tell you what, you get a kick-ass mom in your PTO who's going to be America first and who's going to care about responsibility. So those are the things that are going to affect your community and the people around you. Hey, I'm all about decentralization of like everything, right? I mean, so I understand where you're coming from with all of these platforms you guys talk about when it comes to stacking silver, okay? I'm not against it, but I want to do maybe not either or. Maybe this is both and. Maybe this is a way for you to look at the world around you and say, hey, there's a lot more going on here than just having the government or big banks or big banks or big businesses, taking over, because what they're doing is they're also infiltrating your schools, the schools around you, and they are teaching kids ignorant things, or your kids are just being taught nothing, which is the literal term ignorance, right? So that's a long rant that seems like it's not about silver, but it's all tied together because we're so worried as people who buy silver about what the banks are doing and stuff. But you got to think about generationally what's going to happen, because people complain about millennials. Well, millennials make over half the workforce now. You're not talking about millennials, guys. 5, 10, 15 years from now, what's the workforce going to look like? So if you're 40 and you're planning on retiring in 15 or 20 years, right? What's the workforce going to look like when you have people that only want the central government to pay for everything? What is the voting block going to look like? So you need to consider, yes, I'm going to take care of myself, but it's not going to matter if you have a society around you that doesn't believe that you have the right to anything, right? It's great that we have the Constitution and what it means, but it's meaningless if it can't be implemented by the people around you because they don't believe in it, right? So hi-ho silver away. Go for it, man. But also think about the world around you beyond just the big economics, the big institutions, the big government, and start looking at what's happening around you locally. All right, so that's the rant. That's what I have to say. Thanks so much for watching. You can leave your comments below and let me know what you think. I'm Ben the Coin Geek. You can subscribe by clicking on the button in the corner and watch more videos on the right side of the screen. Thanks.